Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a beautiful Tuesday morning here in the state capitol here in Harrisburg. My name is Patrick McDonald. I'm the president and CEO of Penn Future, an environmental advocacy organization based here in Harrisburg, but with offices across the state. Today we're here to talk about clean water and celebrate Clean Water Education Week. Even though Pennsylvania has over 86,000 miles of streams, many of our waterways have been degraded by threats such as overdevelopment, stormwater runoff, abandoned mine drainage, agricultural runoff, and erosion. PA communities, wildlife, and economy rely on healthy waterways. Underrepresented communities, including majority communities of color, have suffered disproportionately from pollution, including insufficient access to clean water. Environmental justice takes safe drinking water for every Pennsylvanian. Today, for Clean Water Education Day, we are here to address budget inequities for important state basin commissions, to bolster the Commonwealth's commitments to environmental justice, to invest in our parks and our open spaces, to strengthen standards for riparian buffers along our waterways, and for sustainable continuation of dedicated clean stream funding. It's important for the agencies that protect and restore Pennsylvania's waterways to require robust funding to be effective. Our featured speakers today include Kristen Riley, the director of Choose Clean Water Coalition, Kelly Knutson, director of the Coalition for the Delaware River Watershed, Rafika Mohammed, member of the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, Hannah Smith Brubaker, executive director of the Pennsylvania Association for Sustainable Agriculture, and Representative Joe Webster of District 150 in Montgomery County, who knows a lot about the riparian buffer issue. So without further ado, I will introduce Representative Webster to the podium. Representative Webster.
Good morning and thank you. The individuals behind me and most of you, you probably know just about everything I'm about to say about riparian buffers and Pennsylvania. But let's set the stage just a little bit. 1/3 of all of Pennsylvania's waterways are now considered polluted, enough to harm wildlife, to disturb recreation activities and drinking water. And that's according to our state's Department of Environmental Protection. We use a very nice word. We say impaired. Doesn't sound too bad, impaired. The Department of Environmental Protection lists 27,886 miles of streams it found them be impaired in one or more ways. And that was in 2022, and that figure was 9% worse than their same measurements in 2020. Since then, since 2022, we've had, just in my area of southeast Pennsylvania, 3 500-year storms. And because our infrastructure is developed in a way to get the water into the creeks as fast as possible, and because our buffers are impaired, in my House district alone, there were 74 homes destroyed during those floodings. Not to mention over 60 bridges in Montgomery County that needed to be repaired, and businesses that lost buildings and tooling, and massive erosion in the creeks themselves. Creek beds scoured, habitat for fish and birds, and all the other critters under intense distress. So that's where we are, and that's why we need to do some things, and one of them is House Bill 1275. So a quick recap. House Bill 1275 was introduced about a year ago, May of 2023. We've had numerous meetings with the department. with the stakeholders. We have 29 co-sponsors, which is not enough. The legislation itself would provide a minimum 100-foot riparian buffer along each side of a surface body of water. It would protect 300 feet on each side of our highest quality or exceptional value streams and lakes and creeks and the headwaters of these environments. It's got all kinds of variations to it, elevations and gradients and soil content and all that. Lots of exceptions and flexibility for landowners. The goal is to expand and restore Pennsylvania's natural forested riparian buffers, to reestablish natural processes that clean runoff, that filter water through earth, through tree roots, through grasses before it enters the bodies of water, to reduce flooding and to reduce the velocity of water in our creeks during flooding, to improve overall habitat, and it's also about letting the earth absorb some of that water to refill our local aquifers. So thank you. I want to say thank you to Penn Future, the Coalition for the Delaware River Watershed, and Choose Clean Water Coalition for being here today in Harrisburg, for advocating for water quality and access to clean drinking water right here in Pennsylvania. Clean water is a right, and we know that specifically in Pennsylvania because it's in our Constitution. We have the right to clean air and clean water. And while that's very true, Pennsylvanians are too often subjected to things like boil water advisories and do not drink advisories. And after these major storms, the stormwater overwhelms our aging wastewater treatment plants. When chemicals and pollutants are improperly disposed of in our landfills, they leak. Or in my district, in Montgomery County, federally designated Superfund sites where leachates are still leaking and contaminating the wells and streams surrounding those sites. All of this is unacceptable. And it's going to be a big challenge, but that challenge requires all of us to be involved. Again, one of those solutions is House Bill 1275, focusing on riparian buffers, just those forested areas along the sides of our waterways, repairing and reestablishing them throughout Pennsylvania. Healthy riparian buffers act as a natural water filter so that rainwater touches the ground before most of it can reach a river or stream. It runs through soil and root systems, cleaning impurities. And with large enough buffers, the rainwater actually slows down and takes longer to enter our larger water systems, reducing the storm surge. This bill is complex. It's larger than most other bills in the House, and that's how it should be, but that makes it a little bit harder to make sure all the stakeholders, all the departments, all those impacted can come together. So let me tell you, there's some hope here. Obviously, as you can see behind me, the community of environmentally focused, environmentally inspired people support this bill. Outdoors and sportsmen groups are also supportive. They know the value of a riparian buffer for habitat and for wildlife corridors. Farmers need this legislation because topsoil erosion is part of the storm cycle, and we need to protect their fields and their crops. And I think this is an important last statement. Water companies. It seems like the environment frequently we're not very good at the economic argument. So the environment loses that economic argument, and while you and I know that's not actually accurate, it's simple fact that most of the costs of pollution and runoff and storms themselves become external to the calculations. They become somebody else's problem. Well, in this case, our water companies know exactly how much it costs to take impaired water and treat it before drinking water. There's an industry here that needs clean water at the front end of their processes. So I want to tell you, I'm hopeful. There's a very long way to go, and I'll say welcome to Pennsylvania. We know how complicated this is, but I am hopeful. In the past, legislators have often failed to live up to and pass legislation like this that can be proud of, that simultaneously makes enormous positive impact on the lives of every Pennsylvanian. But the times are changing, however slowly, and Chairman Vitale is working with me to improve the bill and get the administration on board too. Above all, I am proud of this bill, and I am most grateful for the people behind me who support it. Let's pass House Bill 1275. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Thank you for your advocacy, your leadership on these issues, and all the work you've done and will continue to do. All right, now we're going to hear from some of the advocates that the representative just mentioned who've been working on these issues. And we're going to start with Kristen Riley, who's the director of the Choose Clean Water Coalition. So, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative. My name is Kristen Riley. I am the director of the Choose Clean Water Coalition. For the past 15 years, the coalition of now more than 300 member organizations has coordinated our advocacy efforts for clean water and healthy communities across the entire Chesapeake Bay watershed. With 86,000 miles of streams across the Commonwealth, Pennsylvanians know how important clean water is to the economy, public health, and our way of life. Our coalition is proud to be working with these partners statewide to urge the Pennsylvania General Assembly to build on the momentum created by the historic investment in the Clean Streams Fund in the 2022 state budget, especially for the state's first Agricultural Conservation Assistance Program, better known as ACAP. ACAP is the best of both worlds. It supports the Keystone State's hardworking farmers by providing cost-effective conservation practices that help improve operations and protect their bottom line, while also improving and protecting our land and water resources. And we know these practices work. Just this week, we learned that the Chesapeake watershed model showed the largest year-to-year reduction from agricultural sources in Pennsylvania. This means the Commonwealth's rivers and streams, including the Susquehanna, are becoming healthier and safer for the millions of residents to fish, swim, and paddle in. The coalition asks that the General Assembly secure dedicated funding for the Clean Streams Fund to keep us on this positive trajectory. It is now my honor to introduce Rafika Muhammad, a clean water champion and member of the Environmental Justice Advocacy Board.
Good morning and thank you. And I want to thank the Clean Water Coalition for putting this together, as well as Penn Future for having me to present this morning. My name is Rafika Muhammad. I am a resident that just happens to serve on Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Advisory Board, Environmental Justice Advisory Board. Being on that board for the third term, I have learned so much about environmental justice and environmental injustice across the state of Pennsylvania. One thing that's really important to me and to educate our communities across the state, and that definitely impacts our clean water, is illegal dumping. When we do illegal dumping in our communities and throughout our state, we're definitely polluting our water on all levels. So for me, as an individual and as a resident of our capital city, and to share the information across the state, my focus and my goal is to educate communities about how we can reduce our waste, how we can protect our water streams, how we could be more educated about our illegal dumping and what we choose to do with the environment. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out this morning, and please take a moment to read all the information that's available on both websites to understand what we are proposing to you, what we are talking about, and how you could be more educated on how you can improve Pennsylvania's clean water fund opportunities. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Hannah Smith Brubaker. Thank Thank you to all the speakers this morning, and an extra thank you to Representative Probst as well. I am a farmer in Juniata County. I run a pastured livestock farm, and we are the last farm on the Lost Creek before it pours into the Juniata River. I also serve as the Executive Director of PASA Sustainable Agriculture. Farmers are drawn to conservation and environmental stewardship for as many reasons as there are farms. Some see conservation as a long-term business strategy, one way to increase yields while lowering input costs. Others adopt sustainable practices out of a deep respect for our natural world and a sense of duty to treat it with care. And still others approach this work as an expression of their faith, as a moral obligation. Whatever the reasons may be, we are all the beneficiaries of their good work. Conservation practices on farms across the Commonwealth, like cover cropping, agroforestry, integrated pest management, and reduced tillage, are improving the ecological health of communities well beyond the farms. For example, our communities are less vulnerable to catastrophic flooding. We know that with each 1% of increase in soil organic matter, that helps 20,000 gallons more of water be absorbed by that farm. Imagine if just 1% of our 7 million acres of farmland increase their soil organic matter by 1%. That's an additional 1.4 billion gallons of water absorbed by our farmland in our Commonwealth instead of dumping directly into our waterways. So if conservation benefits are so hard for farmers to adopt, why? A PASA member survey administered in 2022 pointed to 3 essential barriers. None of them will surprise you: time, money, and know-how. In a business where margins are as thin as farming, change comes with significant financial risk, and that is why government-funded conservation assistance programs are so critical to supporting the farmers who've been on this path for a while and those who wish to begin their journey. Farmers who adopt conservation practices are investing in substantial resources into our collective well-being, and we cannot let them shoulder that burden alone. Federal programs, unfortunately, come often with bureaucracy, and that is where state-funded programs really come in and are so important. They provide the sort of nimble responsiveness to farmers that are so important. One of these, of course, is ACAP. ACAP and its sister programs like PA REAP and the newly established Sustainable Agriculture Board are giving farmers the financial tools necessary to add trees to their pastures, reduce tillage, or get more acres and cover crops. Farmers want to do the right thing for their soils, and ACAP funding presents a tremendous opportunity for farmers, especially if it funds practices that are relevant to our operations, appropriate for farms of different sizes, and feasible to implement. And here's the good news. The people who decide how this money is spent are genuinely interested in the needs and challenges of our farmers. Again, farmers want to do the right thing. They want to do the right thing for their soils, the farm businesses, and their communities. And programs like ACAP make sure that we are all invested in their success. Thank you. Patrick.
Thank you very much. And I'll point out that as we close up here, this is really just the start of the day. We'll be in the building meeting with legislators, advocating for environmental justice, advocating for flood protection, advocating for clean water quality. We heard today from the variety of advocates that this isn't just about water. It's about the food we eat. It's about what comes out of the tap. It's about communities that have been left behind too often in these conversations. And importantly, it's about our environmental rights. The right to pure water is enshrined in the Pennsylvania Constitution. And that should be the thing that we are all very, very focused on. So again, I want to thank everybody for being here today. Appreciate, Representative Webster, your time and efforts on these issues. And we'll see everybody around the building. Thanks all.